Hey guys, welcome back to the Max Spence Business Podcast. Today I have a very special guest, but before I jump into that, if you guys like the content I'm putting out, please like, subscribe, leave a review. It helps out a ton with the podcast. But without further ado, today's guest is Dave. So Dave is the CEO of Freedom Venture Investments. Freedom Venture is a private equity firm focused on commercial real estate and making it easier for investors to get access to some of the best real estate deals. He's also the host of the A&E TV show Flipping Boston. Before running a private equity firm and being the star of a real estate TV show, Dave was a firefighter for 16 years. It's great having you on the show, Dave.
Thanks, man. That's the best intro I think I've had. The other ones have been way too long. Let's hit the bullet points and rock and roll. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm actually really excited for this. I was sort of doing a deep dive a little bit into your background, real estate and then the TV show. So I got some pretty interesting questions about that. And I would pretty much love to hear pretty much your answers to the questions.
Yeah, for sure. It's usually, how did you get started? And like you said in the intro, I didn't come from Yale. I didn't come from jail. I didn't come from Harvard University either. I pretty much a working class background, and I'm an immigrant to the States. I was born in England. Born in London. I grew up in the south coast of England and came over as a young guy in my 20s with, stars in my eyes and big dreams. But landed that job as a firefighter and a paramedic. Loved it. I've always had, I kind of talked today about a blue collar attitude in a white collar world of business. I'm in high finance today with the equity firm, but I think my background has served me very well when it comes to working with retail investors. Right, I don't forget where I came from, working with my hands and my back as well as my brains. But 16 years as a firefighter was a fantastic journey for me. I really enjoyed what I did there. However, I wasn't particularly adept at finance back then. I was really good at spending more money than I earned, which is a very American thing. And I found myself into financial challenges 2007 and 8, and it was that moment in time that I needed to do something different. And I was working construction. Interesting story. I was working construction on my days off from the fire department, and I got to see these real estate investor types, and they had a bigger smile on their face than I did. They were driving nicer cars than I were. They were wearing nicer clothes. I'd be up to my elbows in mud, blood, sweat, and tears, and these guys were just swishing in and out of the construction site. So I know they were doing something different. And that was the incipient moment of starting to find out, how to do some things differently. And that's how I started in the real estate investing world. I went to a seminar and started learning. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's pretty interesting. So you're seeing, you're working construction, seeing these other real estate investors coming through, and you're sort of piqued your interest in being like, what are these guys doing? Like, what have they figured out that I haven't yet about, like how these guys are, driving these nice cars and all that sort of stuff. I sort of want to jump now to, so the thing I'm really interested in is that you've sort of scaled up really quickly into into $100 million fund. So I want to sort of talk about that, about how you actually scaled up into that, from starting as a firefighter construction and then scaling up into that. How were you able to do that so quickly?
Yeah, it appears to have happened quickly, but there's a lot of work that goes into any business, right? You got to build a foundation of both knowledge and implementation. I think there's a lot of people out there that are really good at learning, but they're not necessarily so good at implementing what they've learned. And I was kind of the reverse of that. I was always implementing and then learning from a lot of my own mistakes along the way, which, some were small, some were not so small. But my career's span now over, I would say 25 years, 15 years on the construction side while firefighting, and then another 15 years in the investment side. And, to be where I am today, I've learned residential real estate from the TV show aspect of it, buying a house, fixing it up and selling it for profit, and all of the challenges that involved. So it's been a ground up business journey for me, just like ground up construction starts with a foundation. Then you put up the walls, the roof, the siding, the interior, the electrical, the plumbing. you kind of build a business the same way. And my journey, although I'm known probably best as the guy from the TV show Flippin' Boston that aired on A&E Network. I was always in the commercial real estate space at the same time. And what's interesting, Max, is there's nothing visually sexy about commercial real estate investing, right? It's a very large apartment complex. Maybe it's got a nice swimming pool and some palm trees, as some of our assets that we underwrite do down in Florida. But, it doesn't have that Saturday morning HGTV pop and feel to it. But what is incredibly exciting about commercial real estate is its cash flow potential. You think of it as a piece of commercial real estate, without getting too corny, as an ATM, right? You fix up the machine, and then the machine prints money legally, honestly, and ethically. And the better you are at managing each of those assets, the better you are at creating value, not only for yourselves as a company, but for the investors that join you. So, when my own personal portfolio maxed out at around 120 doors, not a lot. We just liquidated that recently. Actually, it was in Sanford in Maine. So I was always building that while I was doing everything else I was doing. But, the transition from where I was to where we are has accelerated due to COVID. What happened was that at the beginning of 2020, I was heavily involved in a hard money lending business. So we would lend capital to buy, fix, and flip investors. We worked off of a $50 million line of credit. And what the system was designed that we would write the loans from the line of credit, but the credit line needed to be reimbursed within 7 days. So the way that we did that was we had Wall Street were buying our notes, and we were making money on the yield and the origination. The business was doing really well. I mean, I had 15 million in loan origination coming down the pike. And then as soon as COVID hit, Wall Street said, we're not buying your notes anymore. So as soon as it's called non-QM loans or non-QM lending. And as soon as the non-QM owner-occupied loan business went downhill, I went out of business. And I took maybe 2 weeks to step back, regroup. And I always knew what I'm about to tell you, but to face the reality of it was something different. He and or she or they who control the capital win the race, right? Bank of America is Bank of America because they control the capital. The large hedge funds are in the position they're in because they control the capital. Yale Endowment controls the capital. Harvard Retirement Endowment controls the capital. So I looked at the scenario and I said, I don't ever want to be in a position where somebody else has control over the capital anymore. What's the next play? And COVID has created an unprecedented opportunity in apartment house investing in a very specific, what we call buy box asset class. And I'll get into that in a minute. But when I saw the amount of inventory that was available in a market where I'd already established fantastic relationships in the south of Florida, Gulf Coast region, I went to my team there, a gentleman by the name of Walter Novicki, who had done ground up and repositioning of apartment complexes for over 25 years in that market. So he's known as the player. He's known as the closer, right? He's the go-to guy. Walter and I have, we talked, and he said, look, man, he said, we can do what are called syndicated deals. Let's do, one at a time, raise private equity, buy, a 40 to 150 unit apartment complex, reposition it, make it more valuable by its cash flow. He said, or instead of just doing one or two, why don't we buy them all? And I'm like, okay, now you piqued my interest, Walter. I'm listening. And he said, look, man, he said that the mom and pop apartment owner is suffering badly right now because of COVID. They didn't have any reserves going in. Their occupancies weren't where they needed to be. They've just kind of like been hanging on anyway. And then COVID has really been an impact that has really eliminated the underperformers, the amateurs, because they can't sustain through the challenge. Well, that creates buying opportunities for us. And he said, look, man, I can find these assets with enough spread or yield between the market cap rate and what we buy them at to be able to put together a fund, a pool, and we'll buy all of them. So think of them like a the stock market puts all the different companies, into one fund. We put all of the real estate, different assets, all into one fund, all in a specific buy box. And that allows our investors to look at targeted double-digit returns. So it's a pretty exciting time. You ask about speed of scale. This fund has been, it was 4 to 6 months of, Securities and Exchange Commission rules and regulations, background checks, et cetera, to be able to put the fund together. Then, 6 months of capital raising, another 6 months of capital raising. So, it doesn't happen overnight. It's mature investing. It's a different game altogether from the single family stuff. But as I said before, I've always been in commercial real estate. So now this thing's, it's got some legs under it. It's accelerating quite nicely. Lead generation is ridiculous. Institutional capital is now coming to the table. So, these smaller high net worth individuals and what are called family offices, they're beginning to look at our business plan and us as a team. They see the infrastructure being there. So they're starting to talk about checks of 10 to 15 to 20 million, so that you can park that capital in it's where the wealthy park capital for long-term growth is what it's coined to be. So yeah, that's what we're up to, man. Kind of crazy time, but kind of crazy cool at the same time,
Yeah, no, 100%. Just listening to you, I was like, this is crazy. One thing I wanted to ask you is like making that transition into like, taking, pretty much starting this business and taking it to the next level of starting to fund, and, starting to work with like these bigger banks and, hedge funds or pension funds and all these type of players and stuff in these family offices.
Yeah.
Were you nervous at all going into this?
That's such a good question, Max. One of the things I'm very good at is surveying my landscape and then pivoting appropriately. Prior to the fund and the capital raise and these new relationships, I was very vested mentally in the actual physical real estate, right? Like I can walk a building, look at a building, underwrite a building. I can do that in probably 30 minutes. But what I wasn't incredibly vested in was the financial flow, if you will, in the marketplace. I am in finance today. I never thought I'd say that, right? So I needed to learn very quickly, the expectations of yield, right? I wasn't using the term yield prior to the fund. I was always using the term of interest rate, right? But it's interesting how you start looking at fund structures and understanding the difference between GP and LP, general partner and limited partner. The limited partner brings the capital. The general partner runs the project or the fund. A net worth family's expectation of a $10 million equity check. I never thought I'd hear with $100 million fund, you're too small for us to invest in. You know what I mean? So was I nervous? Nervous in the sense of, it has the financial side of it is a newer environment for me to move into. But, when I commit to something, I commit all in. I don't half-ass anything, never have. You don't fight fires tentatively, right? You go all in to put a building out and grab somebody from the third floor. And I look at what I do today the same way. I'm incredibly versed and competent on the finance side. I can hold a discussion with anybody around these topics. Share the downside as well as the upside, right? Just like a real estate transaction, we hedge the downside through expertise and the way that we underwrite our properties, and then we accelerate the upside by simply repositioning, making the asset nicer, leasing up empty units, bringing the current tenancy up to market standard and the income up to market standard through rents. So, I'm not nervous about the world that I'm in. I love a challenge, Max. I'm an entrepreneur, right? And an entrepreneur, I believe, is always dissatisfied. We're always looking for satisfaction. And my satisfaction comes through the building and the new relationships and the new conversations. So, no, I'm not nervous. What else you got? Bring it on. I'm good.
Wow, that's awesome and incredible. And I sort of tell, like, just from you, or you seem more of a person that's more of like, instead of like, I know you have tons of experience in real estate and knowledge and stuff, but when you face this new challenge, instead of like going back and, researching, you just started executing. Which I don't know if that's true. It's just what I've got so far from you is just, you seem as somebody that is.
Oh, you're right on. You're right on. Look, man, after the TV show, I was blessed to be in the education arena. So I've trained real estate investors. I've trained finance around real estate to thousands of people, and some of the smartest people I know. I mean, I talk a lot about Harvard and Yale as a benchmark for education. And, I've sat with some people that on paper are incredibly educated. However, education doesn't always parallel right into financial intelligence and business intelligence, right? The phrase analysis paralysis, right? You can research. Give me another column and equation on a spreadsheet. It doesn't mean you're going to make any money, right? You got to at some point step into it, lean into it, execute on it. So, to a fault at times, I execute. What is it? It's shoot, aim, fire instead of ready, aim, fire. I'm kind of, I shoot first and see where it went afterwards. I always say to my team, I'm going to make a mess. You guys are going to learn how to monetize it afterwards. And they don't always appreciate it. But the one thing that is important is to understand there are, some areas in my business that are non-negotiable for that kind of attitude. And that's in investor capital. I'm very proud to say I've never lost one dime of investor capital throughout my whole career, from single family to what we do today. You only achieve that by, it was funny. My brain's going in 20 directions. I was on a call yesterday with one of my investors. He's a plastic surgeon, physician, very intelligent man, earns a fantastic living. But he said to me, I got to tell you, Dave, he said, you are the most conservative investor I have ever met. He said, the amount of times you tell us not to do a deal, and we don't always take the advice, we do it, make money. He said, so when you do tell us to do something, we know that, everything has been checked and balances taken into consideration. So, I do go at a high rate of speed. Not everybody can keep up with me, but I think the reason for that, Max, is that opportunity goes in one or two directions, towards us or away from us. I'm the guy who takes action on an opportunity. And my investors take action in my opportunity by investing alongside us, right? So I'm fine being at the front of the pack. I can take the lumps, bumps, and bruises. I've already got a lot of scars from this business that people don't have to pay for. I've already done that for them. So it's leverage. It's simply leveraging somebody else's experience. Yeah. And we leverage our investors' capital. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah. Awesome. So I sort of want to ask now is like, you're in the education space and you're teaching, real estate, all this sort of stuff. And you've probably come into contact with, I would probably say thousands of people in the real estate space. So when you meet some of these people that are wanting to aspire to be real estate investors, or, start a fund or get into the finance world, such as yourself, what have you seen that has made them the most successful? Like what personal traits do you sort of like, is there any identifying traits that you've seen in these people? Like,
yeah, that's a great question, Max. Yeah. Action, people taking action. I've watched people invest tens of thousands of dollars in their education to become real estate investors. And, in the single family business, for example, if you're not making anywhere between 50 and 20 offers a month, if not more, you're not going to find a deal. You're not going to make any money. You're not going to do anything. So again, to my point earlier, stepping into something, putting one foot in front of the other, never paralleling. Parallel is just as destructive as going backwards. Forward motion is what creates opportunities. So people who have also people with a lack of ego, right? Some people like to tell you how smart they are, and yet they're broke as a joke. So the people who are teachable, the people who seek mentorship, the people who seek guidance from people who've already done what they want to do, those are the folks that I see are successful over time. To use my doctor for an example that I talked about just now, he refers to me as his mentor. And, I think about that comes with a huge amount of responsibility on my shoulders, but it's also a testament to him, early 60s, plastic surgeon, everything, screams and shouts, success. And yet he comes to me because he doesn't have any success or skill sets yet in the real estate space. So, those that seek shall find. So people who can, check their pride and their ego at the door and be teachable are really the folks that I see create the most amount of success when they begin. So for sure, be teachable and then be in action. Don't just sit there analyzing and running numbers all the time and talking turkey. You got to do something.
Yeah, no, 100%. And those are some great points. I sort of want to jump now to strategic partnerships. And I know you have a partnership with Kevin Harrington, and I was super interested to hear, like, how did you sort of network and sort of, get that partnership and, sort of to meet these people or to meet other people that, like, let's say Kevin O'Leary or somebody like that sort of nature and network and start a strategic partnership with them. How did you sort of do that?
Yeah, good question again. Look, when I was in the education space, it opened up a lot of doors for me. The TV show opened up a lot of doors for me. Multiple appearances on Today's Show, Rachel Ray, Squawk Box, CNBC, CNN. Once you learn the power of marketing and marketing that brand, it opens doors for you. So Kevin and I had known each other for about 8 or 10 years now. We'd interacted a couple of times. We've speaked at similar events together. And I knew that Kevin was in the Tampa market, and I just reached out to him. I said, look, man, we're launching a fund. All our acquisitions are going to be in this marketplace. I'd appreciate your business development skills and your team. And in return, you can come in and be a part of the GP, part of the partnership and the team. He did his own due diligence on us. He knew me personally, so that wasn't a challenge to do due diligence there as a newer relationship. And he was like double, triple thumbs up. He was all over it. So we've been able to leverage both brands, the Shark and the TV Flipper. It's a celebrity fund, which is a rarity in and of itself. It allows us to get a little disruption in the marketplace, get some of these stiff white shirts with their la-di-da. We can loosen them up a little bit. We give them a run for their money. And, that's really how that relationship has panned out. And it's interesting with other business opportunities spawn off of that, for somebody else who's looking for strategic partnerships, the first thing somebody needs to do, I would suggest, is actually write down your own value. What is your value add in the marketplace? What's special about you as an individual? And once you list those 5, 10 things, then you go out and find somebody who does not have those things and then offer those as services. And that's the law of reciprocity. Once you've got some reciprocity in place and you've got some interaction that way, then the fun can really start. And, you might not get, a number one sports celebrity to be a partner going forward. But I'll give you a classic example. This is how partnerships work. And sometimes you have to pay for a seat at the table. So for me, professional athletes are part of my my capital structure, if you will. And there's a guy played in the NFL. He played for the New England Patriots up here, but he has a business model that I've underwritten. It's a product and a service that's coming to market, and I like it. So I'll invest $25,000, $50,000 in this business for two reasons. And I tell them with transparency. One, I like the product. I'm going to make money on your product. But number two, it buys me a seat at the table with other athletes. So, you look for opportunities like that. You look for ways that you can bring, value and expertise to somebody else, and that creates a win-win, right? That win-win isn't corny. It's a reality, So
Yeah.
I search for that stuff every day.
Okay, and that's actually really smart of like, because I've heard a bit like I'm from Ottawa, and there's Ottawa Senators and stuff, and sort of like there's a huge pool of money in the like professional sports industry, but sort of working your way into that industry to sort of have these sports players come into your fund is hard to do, because I've heard it's a little bit like closed off a bit. Trying to get in those rooms. Quickly now, I sort of want to jump to, you talked about the TV show and sort of marketing yourself, which I see you do really, really well. And I want to sort of ask you to give some advice on those points. One, about how did you get the TV show? How did you get that? And then two is, how like, what are your principles about marketing yourself?
Yeah. The TV show was interesting. It was early in my career, flipping houses. I was still working in the fire department, still working construction on my days off, and then starting this house flipping business. But I had a chance to be around some of these info marketers through the seminar world and the education space as well. And I got a little bit of a reputation as being a good guy to learn from, because I was doing what I was learning. And somebody sent me an application. It was an info marketer, said, "Hey, you should try this link. You're a funny guy. See if you can get yourself a TV show." And I sent in an application online, and I loaded it with profanity because I knew I needed to separate myself from everybody else, right? You got to learn how to make some noise. How do you do that? You do it by being contrarian, or incredibly funny, or incredibly handsome, or incredibly sexy. I'm lucky I'm all of those things, so it was easier for me. But no, seriously, I was contrarian. I made some noise, and it got recognized. They liked the way I sounded on the phone. They asked me to send them a little video snippet. I sent them some silliness while we were still in my turnout gear as a firefighter. And then they came down and shot a little, sizzle reel, a 20-minute pilot thing that they shot. And then they sold it to A&E, and the rest was history. So that's how I got that. But, when it comes to marketing, it's interesting. You say I do a good job. I'd say I could do a lot better. I know people that have not had the caveat of a TV show background who do a much better job of branding and marketing themselves than I ever have. Marketing's an interesting landscape in which to navigate, because there's so many people out there who promise you the world, SEO optimization and, Facebook ads and Instagram, and now Clubhouse, which is the newest brand of social media that's out there. And it's, there's a lot of people out there ready to take capital, with their hand out and promise you the world. And yet it's an intangible, like really, if you don't understand the data and the analytics behind these marketing platforms, you can spend a lot of money with a little result. And I've been in all sides of that equation. Some things really well, other things not so well. So, for marketing, the message needs to be congruent. You're not going to find Dave Seymour doing TikTok ads. It's not congruent with my accredited investors who invest hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, into our assets and our offerings. So, they're not hanging out on TikTok. So, you got to know what your avatar is, reverse engineer it, and deliver a message that they understand,
Yeah, I know, 100%. I know we're coming to the end here. It's been absolutely amazing listening to you, Dave. Hearing all the advice you're giving. Before we go, how can people sort of find out more about you, and what else is sort of like? Do you have any projects going on that you want to?
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting that the Canadian investor loves the United States, right? We have a lot of communication and influx from Canada. Anybody that's got an interest in commercial real estate on this side is more than welcome to reach out to us. You can grab us at freedomventure.com. freedomventure.com, freedomventure.com. I'm old school, baby. I actually have a phone number, 781-922-4418. There is somebody who will actually answer that phone. We can set up a meeting. But if you go to that website, there's some great education there. First of all, I want to bring anybody up the education gradient first, so that they can begin to ask intelligent questions. We answer those questions one-on-one. We'll answer those questions through our application form, online form, just to get some information on our potential clients. And then before somebody invests $1 with us, they have to talk to me personally first. I don't bring capital into any of our offerings without meeting my investors first. I think being available is something that separates me and our company from most other capital raisers when it comes to this. We have our fund. It is still in a capital raise. It pays targeted returns of 10 to 14% quarterly distributions. That's buying shares in our management company that manages the assets in the fund. And then we also have a deal right now. It's 81 units in the Florida market, just northeast of Florida, Eustis and Leesburg. It's 2 assets, 1 seller, one acquisition. That's a sweet little deal. That's a $3 million raise that we're just about to launch on that one. So reach out to us, like I said, at freedomventure.com, and you can find information on that offering as well as the fund. So yeah, we're busy, man. Phone's ringing, teams kicking butt, taking names. Our investors are saying thank you for the quarterly distributions. So it's good right now.
Awesome. Well, that's all great to hear. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. And yeah, I hope to have you back on in the future at some point.
Max, you call, I'll answer. I'll be here, buddy. I appreciate your time. Thank you.